Hey, what's going on, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Fulton's Music Reviews. Tonight we're going to take a look at another very highly requested album here for the month of March 2013, and an album that took quite a long time for me to digest and formulate my overall thoughts and opinion on. Either way, tonight we're finally going to get around to talking about it. That album, Soilwork with The Living Infinite. Now, The Living Infinite was released on March 5th, 2013 here in the United States on Nuclear Blast Records and marks the 9th studio album for this particular band. Now, if you're not too familiar with Soilwork's work, they are a melodic death metal band from Sweden who emerged from the era of Gothenburg metal acts, which was big over in Sweden in the mid-1990s. Bands such as Dark Tranquillity, In Flames, and At the Gate being some of the bigger acts around this time over in Sweden. But ever since Soilwork's inception, they released some very standout albums, especially in the early half of their career. Albums such as Steel Bath Suicide, A Predator's Portrait, Natural Born Chaos, and Figure Number 5 being some of the standout albums of this era. But with the last couple of albums, though, this band has sort of experimented with more of a metalcore sound, a little bit more accessible, a little bit more melodic than their earlier roots, and experienced some heavy turbulence with the leaving, the returning, and the second leaving of their founding guitarist Peter Wiggers, as well as their long-standing second guitarist Olaf Frenning. This all happened within the period of their last two albums, Sworn to a Great Divide and The Panic Broadcast. Now, Sylvain Coudray and David Anderson filled in with the band during this time, during the live setting, and we're going to be joining the band in the studio for this new double album. Now, Bjorn Strud, the band's vocalist, wanted the band to kind of go to a new era of their existence, as well as challenge himself vocally, especially with one of the main songwriters now being permanently absent from the band. But with two shaky albums for this, were Soilwork able to sort of get their name back out there as one of the best melodic death metal bands of their time? Well, let's see if Bjorn and the boys succeeded with this one. So, let's take a look. Now, one of the first big positives to The Living Infinite is that this album has a very epic feel to it. Not only was this an ambitious endeavor in theory, but this band certainly delivered in practice as well, because this is not a double album full of half-assed tracks by any means. And this is apparent from the very start of the album with their opener, Spectrum of Eternity, with a very nice string introduction into a section of blast beats with a big heavy riff in the verse and just a huge chorus with accompanying sweep guitar in the background. Just absolutely incredible for that opener, and this album seriously contains some of the strongest songs, songwriting-wise and performance-wise, of Soilwork's entire career. The second great positive about The Living Infinite is that this album has great variety and diversity. Not only do these two new guitar players have great chemistry playing-wise with one another, but they have really pushed the songwriting to a whole new level on this album. They did a great job emulating the band's past sound, maintaining their earlier harmonized riffing sound, but also pushed the band into uncharted territory, which is really impressive. There's still plenty of shred guitar and plenty of big harmonized riffs, as I said before, but this album has a lot of great clean moments, as well as a lot of great acoustic moments, some even including slide guitar. Every member of this band certainly delivered and played their heart out on this album, but if I was to pick an MVP out of any member of this band, it is Bjorn Strud on vocals. He gave such a brilliant vocal performance on this album, from the heavies to the cleans, and even belting out some falsettos in some of these songs. Just very impressive. Brilliant sense of melody on each and every song, and it really sounds like he accomplished his goal of challenging himself, because it really sounds like he did his practicing before he went into the vocal booth to do some of these vocal takes, because he just sounds absolutely incredible. Very well done. And the last great positive about The Living Infinite is that this album has fantastic production and a great overall presentation. And although The Panic Broadcast was a little bit of a shaky album, especially by popular opinion, The Living Infinite took the production of The Panic Broadcast and just tweaked it a little bit more. This album has a very clean, a very balanced, and a very powerful mix. A lot of great dynamics on this album, and it's easily the best sounding Soilwork record to date. I think we have a lot of thanks to give to Jens Bogren, who helped do the mixing, the mastering, and the production on this album. And just look what he did for Creator on the Phantom Antichrist album. We all know how well that was received. But either way, this album has a great overall flow to both albums in terms of their track listing and layout. and really just adds to a very great overall experience in its entirety. So 2 thumbs up for everything about that. So although it seems like Soilwork really delivered on all accounts on this album, there are still a couple of things I feel that could have been tweaked just a little bit more. So let's get into some of what I think are the negative aspects about Soilwork's The Living Infinite. Now, one of my first negative critiques about this album is one that might actually come across as a little bit controversial. However, the first one I feel is that there really wasn't any need to make this a double album. Now, I know that was the original plan right from the get-go, making this one a double album, but musically in the end, I really don't think it was necessary to do so. Some of the songs on the second disc, especially some of the instrumental tracks, seem a little bit like filler to me, and really only added extended intros to some of these songs. It was very, very well done in the end, but in the beginning, I don't think it really would have been necessary to do those. It probably would have been better suited, this overall listening experience, as a single album. Let's say, 18 tracks, just cutting out the 2 instrumental tracks out, which really would have made the album about 80 minutes in length, considering that the total running time of The Living Infinite, as it stands on its own, is only about 84.5 minutes in total. But just to play devil's advocate with myself, a single disc worth of material from this album, though, probably would have been a little bit much. Which brings me to my second negative critique, which kind of seems like a little bit of a hypocrisized view of what I just said. But either way, my next and final critique of The Living Infinite is that the album seems a bit long, especially when listening to in one sitting. This is one of those albums that seems to wear its welcome just a little bit too much, especially when listened to in its entirety back to back. Especially due to the second disc maybe not being as strong as the first, in my opinion, but both discs stand alone very, very well individually. That's one of the best things about this double album set, is that both discs have their own unique feel and their own unique sound. I'm really not sure if the album was laid out in a way where the listening experience was meant to be enjoyed with both discs back to back. Both albums, though long, do create one hell of an epic listening experience, though, I gotta say that. But as one piece of music, though, I really think this album might be just a little bit too long. But as an individual disc basis, both of these albums stand alone very, very well together. Owls predict Oracle Stand Guard being a very, very strong and haunting album closer, especially to both discs as well. Very, very well done overall, though. I really have to give Soilwork 2 thumbs up for this entire listening experience, because they did an absolutely fantastic job with The Living Infinite. They really, really did. So as for my final thoughts and grade on Soilwork's The Living Infinite, this is easily the strongest Soilwork record to date. Every member of this band is on top of their game and played their freaking heart out on this album. The songwriting and the craftsmanship is incredibly well done, and this album contains some of the best songs Soilwork has ever written. A great variety of songs on this album, from a song-to-song basis, as well as a great variety from a disc-to-disc basis as well. Just fantastic production and a great example of a musical journey. And even this cover art, I just can't get enough of it. I think it's absolutely mind-blowing, this album art. I can't praise this album enough, only aside from its length just being maybe a little bit too long at times, but overall, this album set is absolutely top-notch. And it really seems like Soilwork reestablished themselves as one of the best melodic death metal bands to come out of the Gothenburg Swedish metal scene. If I was to give this album a grade, though, I'm going to grade this on an individual disc basis first. For disc 1 of The Living Infinite, I would easily give that a 95. I think that album is just absolutely phenomenal. With disc 2, though, I think it's just, as I said, it's not as strong as I expected it to be, and I would probably give around a 90 to the disc 2 of Soilwork's Living Infinite. So overall, that rounds out to about a 93. So 93 out of 100 for The Living Infinite by Soilwork, which concludes this review. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry I kept you waiting on this album, but it's a long one to digest, and if you go and listen to it, I think you'll figure out what I mean by that, because there's certainly a lot to listen to here. So that concludes this review. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and I will see you next time with another review. Take care, everyone.